What's up, guys? It's time for another vlog. Yeah, hopefully everything will sound okay. I noticed a little bit of like background noise in my last video, but it's just like the sound of my car driving on the road. It picks that up. But yeah, it's a nice new morning. You know, it's sunny. It feels pretty pleasant out here. It's supposed to get pretty warm here in the next couple of days. As far as I know, it's supposed to be really warm tomorrow. Rumor has it. But we have weather here in Maryland, and it's been referred to as, this time of year has been referred to as false fall, because it feels like fall, but it's not. And then second summer. So you get false fall because you think it's going to be fall, and it's not fall yet. And then you get second summer because summer's not over. That's kind of like our season. So I am currently waiting for second summer to be done because I like fall. I like the breeze. I like the cool air and all that, you know. So I'm looking forward to that. I am in the college trenches, basically. I've got a lot of, I'm at the point where I have a lot of reading to do right now. And it looks like, in general, I'll have a good amount of reading to do each week. But as long as I stay up top of it, I'll be fine. But I'm behind the 8 ball right now because I misunderstood something. And it's just been a lot. Time flies so quick. And like last week, I had just 2 days of school. This week is my first full week, so I have 4 days of school. And there's like, you know, you have to read about 20-some pages, 40 pages maybe 40 pages. 40 pages is kind of lofty. It's like 20 or 30 pages before your next class, which is like a day away. So you have like a day you have the evening, and then you have the next day to read the book. And so I'm behind on my psychology reading, and I'm behind on my history reading, but it's not behind like oh my gosh, I'm so far behind. In psychology, I am a little bit behind, but it's with history, it's just like, well, you just read your reading and you'll be fine. And it's like there's adequate time to do that between now and tomorrow, but that means I'm gonna have to sit down and seriously do some reading. So I've got a busy day today. I've got 3 classes like usual on Tuesday, and I have a little bit of time in between each class so I can read and stuff like that. And I don't have class for another hour and a half. No, 2.5 hours. Yay, 2.5 hours, yes. So I've got some time, which is great. Time to get some breakfast, time to read and stuff like that, which is great. So it's interesting. It's really, I'm like in this place where I'm like, okay, we are filling in the cracks. We are like, oh my gosh, like this is like, okay, it's time to make use of your time now. It's time to really put your time to work. I've been playing this solitaire game on my phone, and you can actually win real money. It's like in really small increments, but you can win a few dollars or something like that eventually. And I'm kind of realizing that it's like, yeah, this is kind of robbing me. Like, it's a decompressing type of thing, but I think I need to get out of the habit of playing. I definitely need to play it a lot less, because it's eating up my time and stuff like that. And I mean, besides other things which are pretty normal and not too out of the ordinary or crazy, I don't do a lot with my time besides work and go to school. So and then I have church functions and stuff like that. So it's like just a matter of figuring out what I can do and what I need to do and when I need to do it. And so it's like that. So it's like, yeah, I am a full-time college student, basically. And I've never been one of those before. And you know, I work a job, and I'm also doing that, and I'm learning what that means, what that is, and what that looks like. So it's interesting, but that's actually really cool. I actually really like it. It makes me feel really good. It makes me feel like, yeah, man, I'm doing stuff. Yes, let's go. And then in history class yesterday, when he was talking, the teacher was teaching, you know, he was teaching us about history and stuff like that, I was like, wow, yeah, this is really interesting. And I was thinking, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. This is nice to hear. He's telling us these things, and like we've read a little bit, and he's building this context. He's telling us more. And he's teaching us, or he's educating us, right, about the history of the United States, and like people who started before the United States formed, and like people who were coming from Europe, things that were going on in Europe for a little, to a certain extent, before they started coming to America. And it's just really interesting, and really interesting. And it's like, I found out that I'm pretty sure that he is an atheist, or an agnostic, but he seems, if I had to guess, I don't want to say he's an atheist for sure, because I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was an atheist based off of some of the things he said, and how he said it. And it was really nice, because there was a certain point in the class yesterday that was like, it was nice. It was like, I got to say something that was kind of like, it kind of put a salve on something, like a balm, like the balm of Gilead, kind of like put like put a soothing ointment on wounds, kind of thing. And so we're talking about how the Europeans came to America, and they gave so many diseases to the Native Americans. And in some of those tribes, like in the Caribbean areas, 80 to 90% of those tribes died, like in one generation. In one generation, 80 to 90% of those tribes died because of the diseases. And the teacher was talking about how the Native Americans attributed that to God was giving them space. And you know, it's like, if you think about this nowadays, I feel like nowadays, if something like that happened to us now, we would think, well, God is punishing us. Clearly, he hates us. He killed almost all of us. So clearly, he hates us. Clearly, he's punishing us. Blah, blah, blah. You know? It's like, that's not what the Native Americans thought at all. They thought, well, at least some of them thought, that a good enough representation of them thought that God was creating space for them. He was giving them more room. And I was like, wow, what a beautiful thing, right? Like, this is not the direction the teacher went. This is not what the teacher was thinking. I was thinking, wow, that's actually, I was like, you know what? That is actually really beautiful, because, okay, you have 80 to 90% mortality rate, and 80 to 90% of you guys are gone. Your history, your culture, your identity, your families, they're gone. And there's a degree of savageness in those cultures, so it's not like all warm and cuddly, but you know, to certain, you know, so there's those kinds of things. But still, to lose that many of your people, and then to come away thinking that God has blessed you, that's a pretty amazing thing. That's a pretty powerful thought. And the teacher was like, well, you know, obviously, he didn't outright say, obviously God wasn't blessing them. He didn't say that. He was basically saying that it was an illogical conclusion to come to, because they didn't know what was really going on. And the teacher asserted that what was really going on was the Europeans brought the diseases, and they were killing them. And so it was interesting, he was making a point, and he was kind of saying, like, you know, it's kind of crazy that the Native Americans thought this, but, you know, what can you really expect? Because, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it's like, you know, they didn't really have the technology, they had no understanding about germs or bacteria or anything like that. It's like, so it's a logical conclusion that they would come to that conclusion based off of what they know and based off of what they thought. But he was also kind of, in a way, I suspected he was saying it was a very illogical thing for them to conclude. Very illogical. And of course, in saying that's illogical, it's implicit that, you know, God is like, you know, I don't know. There's a lot to unpack there and a lot of uncertainty and everything. But what I said was, you know, because he kind of left this air in the classroom that kind of said, like, obviously God's not blessing them. He just killed most of them. Or if there is a God, and if he is involved, then why would you think he's blessing you when he killed 80 to 90% of your people? So there's a lot of those kinds of thoughts and stuff like that. And I just said, well, given the tragedy of the fact that that many of them died, it's like, well, of course they came to some conclusion, right? Of course they came to a conclusion. I mean, if something like that happened, what would you think? You'd have to come to a conclusion about what this is, why this happened, and what's going on. You just naturally have to, because if you don't, then you're just like, well, what the heck, man? I don't know why 90% of us are dead. I don't know. Well, we have to have some reason or explanation. And so they found a reason. They had an explanation and a reason. And I don't think they were that crazy in believing that, because I just like that. And something else I know for sure is that, despite culture being more advanced, and I guess it was more advanced technologically speaking and stuff in Europe compared to like the Americas, despite that, I think that if you have a close connection to the ground, to Earth, basically, if you have a close connection to nature, I feel that naturally and eventually you start coming to the conclusion that there is a God, that He's made everything around. Like, if you think about the Native Americans and the way they looked at things, the teacher yesterday said that, the Native Americans were mostly not monotheistic, they were mostly polytheistic, which can sound bad to a Christian's ear, because Christians mostly posit that there's monotheists, that there's only one God. But the Indians were like, well, no, there's they all believe different things. There's so many tribes and differences and variations in their beliefs and understandings and ways of life and cultures. But they believed in the sun, the stars, the moon, the sky, and the Great Spirit and things like that. And so they had this connection. They had a connection to the divine, and that connection to the divine was through nature. And their connection to nature was all-encompassing, because they lived outside, they made huts, they hunted animals, they made weapons, they lived in the fresh air, they lived on the prairies, they lived in nature. They didn't have the complications and diverse opinions of cultures like the Europeans had, where it's like, you can imagine, well, everyone has got their theories and their thoughts and their talking. In the Americas, there were so many cultures of Indians, and they did not all speak the same language, and they're very vast. There's just a difference in America and European culture at that time. And to me, it makes more sense that the Indians would have more of a relationship with God than the Europeans would, or it would just be a little bit different. It would be different, but I think they had a deeper relationship with God because of their connection to Earth and to nature. And because God made everything. He made everything. His fingerprints are in everything. You look anywhere, you can see the fingerprints of God. He made this. He made everything. He made us. And we have made things. It's clear that we have come from God, because God made everything, and we make things now. Like, we make cities, we make roads, we make computers, technologies, vaccines, all kinds of things to help and make life better. And it's like, well, God made everything, and look at us. We're descendants from God. We are His spirit sons and daughters. We are made in His image. So of course we're out here making stuff. Like, of course we're doing the same stuff that He did or does. And it's different because we're in a sinful world. Like, we're in a world where everyone sins, to some extent, and we are all kind of removed from God unless we have found Him and have come to Him. So there are degrees of separation between us and God, basically, in this world, ultimately speaking, or collectively speaking. And so it's just really interesting, and I just love the connection that the Native Americans had with the divine, with nature. I just love that so much. And so while it may be easy to assume or presume that conclude that they are just savages, they didn't know any better, they're just crazy people killing each other, which was true. They were very savage, and they did kill each other brutally. You know, there was, I believe, a great connection to the divine amongst them, and now how much, to what an extent that connection is kind of like another story. Like I don't know how much they were connected with God and to the divine and all, but and they definitely had their own ideas about things, but they did definitely have a connection to God because they believed in all the things. They respected the animals, they respected the earth, they respected the plants, they had respect and reverence for life. Now, yes, they did brutally murder each other, but they still had respect for life. It was just a different way of doing things. And so, I don't know, I just wanted to speak on that a little bit and, share my thoughts a bit. But yeah, it's super exciting. I love this history class. I'm super excited to hear more. And it was funny because at one point, I could have said something, but I didn't. It might not be the time or whatever. But our teacher was talking about the first people who came to America from Europe and stuff like that. He talked about people come from the Bering Strait and migrating. That's how the Native Americans first came. He said, which is I don't know if that's exactly true. It's like probably true. It's like pretty much true. I'm sure it's true to some extent. I mean, like it's probably true. But I was thinking like, and he's talking about Columbus now, and I was thinking like, well, yeah, you haven't really thought about the Book of Mormon, have you? Or you haven't thought about the people from Jerusalem, Lehi and his family, right? And I didn't say that, but he just doesn't really. And I think that one of the reasons he doesn't really acknowledge that is because he doesn't really acknowledge. He set up the criteria for the historians believe they have to have a lot of written proof and stuff like that. And luckily, we have the Book of Mormon, right? We have the Book of Mormon, which is amazing. And then you have the whether, okay, well, did Joseph Smith write it, or was it really true? And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's all of that, and so there's a lot of filters that it would have to go through for it to scratch the surface of relevancy in his mind, I'd say. But still, I was thinking that, like, but did you know though? So it's been fascinating. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.